Good morning, class, and good morning, teachers, as you're joining me here today. Today we're going to be talking about narrative writing. And narrative writing is my favorite writing because it's where you create a story, okay? Not just the stories in books, things like that, but you create something out of your own experiences, the things you've been through in your life, and turn them into a story. So when I say the word narrative today, narrative, I'm talking about a story. But you might be asking yourself, Miss Warren, what makes a story? What even is that? Well, to keep it as simple as possible for you here today, a story is anything that has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And we're actually going to talk about more as the year goes on what we can do to make a beginning, a middle, and an end. But for today, we're going to go with a story is a beginning, a middle, and end. Here's a great way to think about it. Let's say I have Superman known as Spider-Man, right? There's a dude named Peter Parker. He gets bitten by the spider, turns him into a superhero. He can do all these webs, go from tower to tower. Pretty cool. That's how things began. Then one day he meets his enemy, Mr. Green Goblin, wants to destroy everything. Major problem. That's the middle. But what if we ended the story right there? Nothing ever became of the enemy. The city was never saved. That's a major problem. We need an ending. So again, every good story has all three components, a beginning, a middle, and an end. One last thing I'd like you to know about narrative, too, is that it can be fiction, meaning fake. And I like to remember the F in fiction and the F in fake. Or non-fiction. Non is a word that means not. So it can also be not fake. Or it might be easier to remember as real, right? Most of the stories we're going to do together will be non-fiction or real because they'll be your stories. All right. Today in your writer's notebook, on your table of contents, I would like you to write first times, last times, and turning points. Please put it next to page 1 and then flip to page 1. If you say, Miss Warren, what's that supposed to look like? When you get to page 1 in your notebook, can you make it look just like this? All right. So today we're going to talk about a narrative writing strategy. A strategy is a tool, something that helps us make something difficult into something easy. So, right now I want you to think of some first times in your life. For instance, for me, I remember the first time I met my favorite dog, Gizmo. I remember that so vividly, like it happened yesterday. I remember the first time I met my husband. I remember when I got to go to Egypt. That was pretty awesome. And I remember the first time I ever entered a classroom that I was teaching. First time teaching. Now I think about some last times. Sometimes this one can be kind of sad because oftentimes it helps us think about last times we saw people we loved. So for instance, I remember the last time I saw somebody who was very special to me, my grandmother. And then our last column here is turning points. Moments where you felt your life changed. Sometimes we only have enough to put one thing there. Sometimes you might have plenty. But right now you're still a kid, so maybe you don't have a ton of turning points. I have just a few. I remember the moment my son was born. That was a turning point, a major change in my life. I also remember getting married was a big change. Having a husband, moving away to a new place, it created a lot of change. That was a turning point. Now, I've got a lot on this list. This was a good strategy. I could write a story about any one of these. So here's what I'd like you to do before we actually start our story. Today, I would like you to put at least 2 things under each column. Actually, let's say 1 even. How about we put 1 thing under each column? So can you give me 1 thing that you remembered was a first time for you, 1 thing that was a last time for you, and maybe a turning point? And if you say, Miss Ward, I could do several things for a first time or last time or a turning point, I encourage you to do that. Can you take 2 minutes to do that for me?